You know, it's funny, like we live in a world with more ways to connect than ever, right? But so many of us still feel that pang of loneliness.
Yeah.
It's like this strange paradox of modern life. You're
Yeah.
surrounded by people, constantly bombarded with notifications,
Mm.
and yet still you can feel deeply alone.
Hmm.
So we're diving into something that you might not expect, Stoicism. This ancient philosophy might hold some surprising solutions for this very modern problem.
Yeah, it is fascinating how these age-old ideas can be so relevant today. I
Right.
think philosophers living in ancient Rome wouldn't have much to say about our 21st century woes, but
Yeah.
when you dig into the works of Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, you realize they were grappling with some of the same core questions about happiness and fulfillment that we still are.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Stoicism. Where do we even begin?
Well, one of the most powerful Stoic principles, especially when it comes to tackling loneliness, is this idea of finding contentment within yourself. The Stoics believed that true happiness shouldn't hinge on external validation, likes, followers, or even constant companionship.
So instead of chasing that external validation, it's about cultivating a sense of peace and satisfaction that comes from within.
Right.
I can see how that could be incredibly powerful, especially when you're feeling isolated.
Yeah,
If your happiness isn't totally dependent on, like, having a packed social calendar, maybe those lonely moments sting a little less.
exactly. It's like building this internal fortress of happiness.
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, actually wrote, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. He was basically saying we have the power to choose our thoughts, and that focusing on gratitude, even in the midst of challenges, can completely transform our experience.
So it's almost like a mental shift, right? Instead
Yeah.
of dwelling on what we're lacking, company, connection, whatever, we can consciously choose to appreciate what we do have.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing how this could be helpful. Imagine like taking a few minutes each day to reflect on the things you're truly grateful for.
Hmm.
Simple things, maybe a good cup of coffee, a beautiful sunset, or a meaningful conversation. Could that shift your perspective over time?
Absolutely. It's not about ignoring the difficult emotions, but about intentionally cultivating a sense of gratitude. This simple practice can actually rewire your brain over time, helping you focus on the positive even when loneliness tries to creep in.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So Stoicism says, hey, find that inner peace, build that internal fortress of happiness, and don't let loneliness dictate your joy. But wait, before you envision us all turning into hermits, Stoicism doesn't completely dismiss the importance of connection, right?
Not at all. Stoicism places a high value on connection, but it's about quality over quantity.
Right.
Instead of amassing a ton of friends or followers, it's about nurturing those relationships that truly bring you joy and help you grow as a person.
I'm picturing a garden. You wouldn't just plant every seed you can find, would you? You'd carefully choose the plants that would thrive in your specific environment and nourish you in return. It's about being intentional about who we let into our lives and recognizing that not all connections are created equal.
You've got it. Seneca, another prominent Stoic thinker, wrote a lot about friendship.
Okay.
He believed that true friends challenge you to become a better version of yourself. He wasn't talking about toxic relationships or those that drain you, but those that uplift and inspire you.
Okay. So if you're listening, think about your own relationships for a second.
Yeah.
Which ones truly make you feel seen, supported, and inspired? Those are the ones worth investing in. And maybe, just maybe, there are some connections that aren't serving you anymore. Ones that might be adding to that feeling of loneliness rather than combating it.
That's a really important point.
Mm.
You have the power to choose who you spend your time with and what kind of energy you allow into your life. One practical thing you can try is active listening. Really focusing on hearing and understanding what the other person is saying can deepen any bond immensely and make your connections feel more meaningful.
So we've got inner contentment and choosing quality connections over quantity, two surprisingly potent antidotes to loneliness, all thanks to these ancient philosophers. But there's another Stoic idea that really intrigues me, the idea of reframing solitude. We often view being alone as a negative thing, but the Stoics seem to have a different take on it.
They absolutely did. Seneca, for example, saw solitude not as something to fear, but as a valuable opportunity.
Hmm.
He viewed it as a chance for renewal, reflection, and reconnecting with your true self. It's almost like hitting the reset button on your mind and spirit.
Instead of being alone, it's more about being with oneself, right? I think so many of us have lost sight of that in our always-on world. We're so used to constant stimulation that we've forgotten how to simply be with ourselves without distractions.
It's true. And think about it, when we're constantly bombarded by external noise, it's hard to tune into our inner voice, to process emotions and gain clarity. Those quiet moments of solitude allow space for that.
Okay, so all that sounds great, but for many of us, the idea of sitting alone with our thoughts can be kind of terrifying. We're so used to filling every silence with something. How do we actually start embracing solitude instead of fearing it?
Start small.
Uh,
Even just 15 minutes a day. Step away from all the screens and just be. Try activities that feed your soul.
yeah.
Reading, meditation, taking a walk, listening to music, or exploring a creative hobby. Think of it as a gift to yourself.
Okay, I'm loving this reframing of solitude. So we've got inner contentment, building meaningful connections, and even learning to enjoy those moments alone. But humans are inherently social, right? We crave a sense of belonging, of being part of something bigger than ourselves. And this is where I think Stoicism gets really interesting. It doesn't just focus on the individual, it also recognizes the importance of community.
You're absolutely right. While Stoicism emphasizes personal responsibility for happiness, it also places a high value on community engagement. In fact, Marcus Aurelius believed that contributing to the well-being of others was an essential part of living a virtuous life. He saw us all as interconnected with a shared responsibility to make the world a better place.
So it's not just about focusing inward, it's also about looking outward and finding ways to contribute to something larger than ourselves. I can see how that sense of purpose and belonging could be incredibly powerful in combating loneliness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this doesn't have to involve grand gestures. It's about the small, everyday acts of kindness, compassion, and service. Think about volunteering for a cause you care about, joining a club that aligns with your interests, or even just making an effort to connect with your neighbors.
So many possibilities. You could join a book club, take a cooking class, or even participate in an online forum dedicated to your hobbies.
Yeah.
And those seemingly small interactions can add up to a huge shift in how connected you feel.
Absolutely. It's about finding your tribe, those people who share your passions and values. Those connections can make all the difference in the world.
It's amazing how we're finding these practical, applicable solutions to a modern problem, like loneliness in a philosophy developed centuries ago, you know? As we've been discussing, Stoicism really seems to be about more than just enduring tough times.
Yeah.
It's about using those tough times to actually grow and thrive.
Yes. And I think that's a key point.
Yeah.
It's not about suppressing emotions, becoming some sort of unfeeling robot.
Right.
It's more about recognizing our emotions, understanding their roots, and then making conscious choices about how to respond to them.
So instead of letting our emotions completely control us, we're taking a step back.
Yeah.
Recognizing what we're feeling and then choosing how to move forward in a way that aligns with our values.
Right.
Almost like we're taking back the steering wheel.
That's a great analogy. The Stoics understood that we're all going to experience a whole range of emotions.
Yeah.
Joy, sadness, anger, frustration. They weren't suggesting we try to eliminate these feelings,
Right.
but rather that we learn to manage them in a way that leads to greater peace and well-being.
And I imagine that's a skill you can develop over time, right? The more you practice, the better you get at recognizing those emotional triggers. Exactly. And choosing a more constructive response.
Absolutely. It's like exercising a muscle.
Yeah.
The more you work it, the stronger it gets.
Right.
And as you build up that emotional intelligence muscle, you'll find you're less reactive to the inevitable ups and downs of life.
It's almost like building resilience from the inside out. And I think that's crucial when it comes to something like loneliness.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, life is full of situations that could trigger those feelings of isolation.
Right.
Maybe a friendship changes, someone lets you down, or circumstances shift unexpectedly.
Exactly. The Stoics understood that we don't have control over everything that happens to us.
Yeah.
But what we can control is how we respond to those events.
Okay.
And that's a really empowering realization.
So it's not about denying those difficult feelings or pretending that loneliness doesn't hurt. It's about acknowledging those feelings and then choosing to move forward in a way that supports your well-being.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And that forward movement might look different for everyone.
Okay.
For you, it might involve reaching out to a friend.
Yeah.
For someone else, it might be taking some time for solo reflection or maybe engaging in a hobby they love.
Right.
The key is to find what works for you, what helps you navigate those difficult emotions and come up the other side feeling stronger and more centered.
That's such a great point. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to loneliness.
Right.
It's about figuring out what works best for you. And maybe that even changes depending on the situation.
Hmm.
It's almost like building a personal toolkit of Stoic practices to draw from when you need them.
Exactly. It's about having those go-to practices like journaling, spending time in nature, or practicing mindfulness. These are tools that can help you shift your perspective and find a sense of peace, even when those feelings of loneliness creep in.
And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of Stoicism that we haven't really touched on yet,
Okay.
the idea of memento mori.
Yeah.
I've heard about this, but always found it a bit morbid.
Uh-huh.
How does remembering death help us combat loneliness?
It's not about dwelling on death in a depressing way, but rather recognizing the preciousness of life. When you really internalize the fact that your time is limited, you can actually be a powerful motivator to deepen your connections with others and fully appreciate each moment.
Okay, I can see that. It's like a shift in perspective from scarcity to abundance. Instead of thinking about all the time you don't have,
Right.
you're focusing on making the most of the time you do have.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that quote by Seneca. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it.
Yes. It's a reminder to savor those moments of connection, let go of petty grievances, and really be present with the people you care about.
And I think that presence piece connects really beautifully with the Stoic emphasis on mindfulness that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
When you're truly present in the moment, you're less likely to get caught up in those thought spirals that can fuel loneliness.
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Instead of dwelling on past hurts or anxiously anticipating the future,
Mm-hmm.
you're fully engaged in the here and now. That can be a very liberating experience.
Okay. But full disclosure, I think that's one of the toughest things for me personally.
It feels like my mind is constantly racing, jumping from one worry to the next.
Yeah.
And then there are all the distractions, checking my phone, scrolling through social media.
Right.
It's hard to quiet all that noise.
I think a lot of us struggle with that in our hyper-connected world. But, the Stoics would say it's precisely in those moments of quiet, of stillness,
Right.
that we're able to truly connect with ourselves and the world around us.
So it's about intentionally creating space for those moments,
Right.
whether it's through meditation, spending time in nature, or simply disconnecting from technology for a while.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. Even just 5 or 10 minutes of focused breathing, mindful walking, or simply sitting in silence can make a huge difference.
Small steps, big impact. I like that. It feels a lot less overwhelming than thinking you have to completely overhaul your entire life to embrace these Stoic principles.
Absolutely. It's about finding what works for you and incorporating it into your daily life in a way that feels sustainable.
Right.
It could be starting each day with a gratitude practice. Yeah.
Taking a few minutes to appreciate the beauty of nature, or even just choosing to respond to a challenging situation with patience and understanding instead of frustration.
It's those small conscious choices that can gradually shift our perspective and lead to a more fulfilling life.
And it's important to remember that it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
There will be days when we struggle, when loneliness creeps in, when we fall back into old patterns.
Right.
But the Stoics remind us that's okay. It's part of being human. The key is to keep practicing, to keep striving toward greater peace and resilience.
And to remember that we're not alone in this journey. The Stoics believed in the power of community, of supporting each other through life's challenges.
Yes. That brings us to the beautiful concept of Ubuntu, a Nguni Bantu term that roughly translates to humanity towards others.
Okay.
It's a philosophy that highlights our interconnectedness, the idea that we are all part of a larger human family.
I love that. It's a powerful reminder that even when we're feeling isolated, we're not truly alone. We're all connected, sharing this human experience together.
And that shared connection can be a powerful antidote to loneliness. When we reach out to others, offer support, practice kindness, and cultivate empathy, we create a ripple effect of positivity that spreads far beyond ourselves.
So in a way, by combating our own loneliness, we're also contributing to a more compassionate and connected world.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others. When we lift each other up, we all rise together.
As we're exploring all these Stoic ideas and how they can help us navigate modern life, I'm realizing how much of it really boils down to perspective.
Yeah.
It's about choosing to see the world through a lens of gratitude, resilience, and connection.
You're absolutely right. And the Stoics were very clear about this.
Yeah.
They believe that our thoughts create our reality. If we focus on negativity, fear, and lack, that's what we'll experience. But if we choose to focus on gratitude, possibility, and connection, our experience will shift accordingly.
Wow. So it's like we have this power to actually shape our own reality just by choosing how we perceive the world. That's a pretty radical idea.
It is radical, and it's incredibly empowering. It means that even in the face of challenges, even when we're feeling overwhelmed by loneliness,
Yeah.
we have the power to choose a different path.
It's like as we go deeper into this world of Stoicism, it's really striking how much wisdom like they packed into these
Yeah.
ideas, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just about surviving like hard times.
Uh,
It's about using those experiences to become a stronger, more resilient version of yourself.
And one of the things that I find so refreshing about Stoicism is that it's not about denying your emotions or trying to become some kind of unfeeling robot.
Right.
It's about acknowledging those feelings, understanding where they come from, and then choosing how you respond.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about before, taking back control of the steering wheel.
Exactly.
Instead of letting our emotions drive us all over the place, we're learning to navigate them in a like more intentional way.
That's a great way to put it. And that intentionality can be incredibly powerful, especially when you're dealing with something like loneliness. Because, let's be real, relationships shift.
Yeah.
People disappoint us, circumstances change.
Yeah, that's life. Right.
But if you've cultivated that inner strength, that sense of contentment that comes from within, you're less likely to be completely derailed when those external things happen.
You're not building your like entire sense of self-worth on those external factors, so when they inevitably fluctuate, you've got a stronger foundation to stand on.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond.
Right.
And that's where the real power lies.
So it's not about pretending those difficult emotions don't exist or trying to force yourself to be happy all the time.
Right.
It's about acknowledging the pain, allowing yourself to feel it, and then choosing to move forward in a way that feels aligned with your values and goals.
That's such an important point. And those steps forward might look different for everyone.
Yeah.
For some, it might be reaching out to a friend for support. For others, it might be journaling or engaging in a creative outlet. Maybe it's taking a walk in nature or listening to some uplifting music.
Right.
You know, it really is about finding what works for you, what helps you navigate those rough waters and come out the other side feeling a little stronger, a little more whole.
Absolutely. And remember, you're not alone in this.
Yeah,
Loneliness is a universal human experience,
it is.
but it doesn't have to define you. There are tools and practices that can help you not only cope, but actually thrive, even when those feelings of isolation start to creep in.
Exactly. It's about shifting your perspective and recognizing that you have more power than you might realize. You have the power to choose your thoughts, your actions, and your response to any given situation. And those choices can make all the difference.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Stoicism, what's the one key takeaway you hope listeners will walk away with?
I'd say it's this. Stoicism is more than just a philosophy to read about. It's a way of life. It's about embodying these principles in your daily actions, in your interactions with others, and in your relationship with yourself. It's about cultivating inner strength, wisdom, and compassion. It's about navigating life's complexities with grace and resilience.
Beautifully said. And as we continue on our individual journeys, let's remember that Stoic reminder to focus on what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, our responses. And let's not forget to savor the present moment. We've got this one precious life, and within it, there's so much potential for connection, joy, and fulfillment.
I love that. And maybe, just maybe, as we all strive to embody these principles a little more each day, we'll create a world where loneliness is met with a little more understanding, a little more support, and a lot more genuine human connection.
That's something worth striving for, isn't it?